Oh, so many of our buddies. Wendy, good to see you. Kelly. Hey, Trace. Jan Golden, Next Avenue Influencer in Aging. Woohoo. Deborah, good to see you. Sarah Hart. Margaret. Joey. Good to see you. I know. Can we just hang out and say hi to everyone? Okay. We do. So one of the things we believe is on starting and ending on time. So we are going to go ahead and start while Kelly continues to admit people. My name is Janine Vanderberg. I am thrilled to welcome you to this program about Encore entrepreneurship. As a longtime entrepreneur myself and as an Encore entrepreneur, who started changing the narrative when I turned age 65. It is a pleasure to have this program, and also with someone who has been a longtime Encore Network member. I chaired the Encore Network for 3 years, and I know that Encore entrepreneurship is really, really important at this stage of life, and so many people don't know how are interested. And so I just think it's really, really important. And I'm grateful that the Encore Network and Mary Cronin and Doug Dixon, the co-chairs of the Affinity Group, decided to do this program. So with that, we are going to kick this off with an introduction by Mary Cronin. Mary, go ahead and take it away.
Well, thank you, Janine. And I am sharing my screen now. So hopefully everyone is going to be able to see this very brief introduction. Everyone see that? I am Mary Cronin. I put myself on this first slide just so you'd have that information in front of you. And I am really excited and honored to be the one to kick off this program. And I'm here to really set the stage for this amazing group of experienced and successful Encore entrepreneurs who are at the heart of this program. And I'm going to just briefly share some of the highlights from my own work, which includes research and writing. So that is my book, Starting Up Smarter: Why Founders Over 50 Build Better Companies. And on the other side is a recent newsletter that I've started on LinkedIn, From Startup to Exit to What's Next. And in my professional life for a long time now, I have been writing about, researching, and teaching entrepreneurship and business strategy. So I'm excited to share insider information in the following way. We are the insiders here. We are the Encore entrepreneurs. I am a solopreneur. All of our panelists are Encore entrepreneurs in different types of businesses. And I know that many of you in the audience are also Encore entrepreneurs. So even though we are the insiders, I think I have some news to share. And this is the first piece of news. We are millions strong, with more people who are over 50 choosing to become entrepreneurs every year. So here's what I find to be a joke, funny, in that I am constantly being asked, well, how do you find founders over 50 to talk to? And I say, well, do you know how many founders over 50 there actually are in the US? And I can tell you, nobody says, well, how about 17 million? Would that be about the right number? And that is, in fact, the right number, as you can see here. Of the 33 plus million small businesses in the US today, more than 50% of the founders and owners of those businesses are over 50. So I took this chart from an article in Forbes to just highlight that, because millennials actually only represent 13% of the owners of small businesses today. Interesting to me, and this is a piece of data that our Entrepreneurship Affinity Group is going to turn into a program, I hope, coming up in the fall about solopreneurs. So over 80% of the founders over 50 are in solo ventures. Also, these numbers just keep growing. So about 4.5 or, well, between 4.5 and 5 million, depending on the year. New companies, they go into the startup phase. They don't all make it out the other side with an incorporated company, but they indicate an intention to start a company. So these numbers are just going to keep growing. And one final thing to think about here is how this compares to the awareness of how many Encore entrepreneurs there are. So we have an enormous positive impact on the economy. We represent the majority of small businesses. And a piece of context here that I put on this slide, small businesses, that's up to 499 employees. So that actually includes 99% of the companies in the US. And the headlines go to the large corporations, but we won't have any quizzes, although I do that in my teaching. So if you think about large corporations, they get all the media coverage. There's about 20,000 large US corporations compared to the millions of Encore entrepreneurs. So we are overlooked. We're certainly underappreciated, and it's understandable, but it's also something that we are working hard to change, because this is a huge group which has an enormous impact, and we do exciting and wonderful things when we start companies. And next up, from my book and the research I've done, when we start companies, we are in fact more successful. So this is data from a number of studies. We are more likely to still be in business after 5 years, thereby beating the odds of the success and failure rate of startups. Even though many older founders, and indeed small companies, many of them are single-person ventures, the companies that do stay in business for 5 years and more are very likely to hire employees, and they definitely are at the top end of generating revenue and profitability. So I put the citation in here in case anyone wants to follow up with this, but a really important study, which got some coverage at the time, and you'll still see some echoes around about older founders are more successful. It was extremely well done. It tracked 2.7 million companies over a long period of time to come up with this data. And I just love this statistic that a 60-year-old is 10 times more likely to be successful when they do start a company compared to a 22-year-old, which is not to say that we don't hire 22-year-olds and wish them all the best. And that is part of what I do, is I teach college students about entrepreneurship, but we should be celebrating ourselves and continuing to share this great news. Something else about older entrepreneurs that also comes from research, and Doug, I want to give a shout out to you. Doug Dixon contributed a wonderful chapter to Starting Up Smarter, Why Founders Over 50 Build Better Companies. That was about the research on purpose and resilience as we enter our 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. And across the board, older adults do resonate more strongly with purpose, and we are more resilient. And I think that is well understood and worth celebrating, because when you pair that with entrepreneurship, it's actually at the heart of our success rate, is that we do start mostly with a purpose to make the world a better place. Every entrepreneur has change in mind. They have a solution in mind when they start a business. Older entrepreneurs are more likely to have positive social change as that purpose. We want to make lives better. We want to make a lasting contribution. And that contributes to our resilience as founders. It makes us more able to stick to it when the challenges come up, and they do come up for every founder of every age. And it also makes us more willing to learn from our mistakes and to stay agile and, again, stay the course, which contributes to our long-term success rate. One thing that I have looked at in some detail, and it will, I hope, make you smile and nod your head, is that those of us who did not grow up as the digital natives of the social media world, who actually grew up mainly meeting people face to face and building strong face to face contacts, have actually a significant advantage in the depth and the strength of our social networks, because we have strong human connections and face-to-face networking skills, as well as digital and social networking skills. So these are just some of the reasons, the documented reasons, that Encore entrepreneurs are statistically more successful. And again, things that I know you'll be hearing from everyone on the panel as part of what they are bringing to the table for their own ventures. So wrap up. I promised this was going to be brief, and I'm happy to be part of the Q&A and answer any questions you might have. So another strong point for older entrepreneurs, and I know this because I do know so many, we are us, is that we are eager to learn. We know we have a lot to learn about new technologies and new developments, and we're also generously willing to share what we know. I will say, on just a reality note, as I wrap up, nobody is a born entrepreneur. And in particular, there is a skill set to become successful as a business owner that everyone of every age needs to learn. There are best practices. There are tools available. There are processes that work better if you follow them in planning your new venture, in setting up your financial projections, in the kinds of marketings and customer segmentation that you are going to do. And I can say that with some confidence because that is the content of the courses I teach at Boston College. And students are signing up to learn these things and practice them in that sandbox environment before they graduate and jump into a startup, maybe as a team member, and learn more to become a founder. So there's no reason to expect that you should know everything in thinking about your first company or even your second company. And again, I just wrote an article which Brian generously contributed to about serial entrepreneurs and what keeps them coming back for more, and how do they overcome the odds. And Brian, I will steal this line from you because I love it so much. Brian Eagle, who's on our panel, said to me in this interview, every company I started, I made a mistake, and I had to learn from that mistake and pivot and listen to the customers and take it into the market in a new way. And that's a very common experience. So that's by way of urging all of us to remember that there's a learning curve. There's always new technology. There's always new strategies. So this is just a selection of the kinds of resources that are available. And in addition to academic courses, which of course I recommend, but then you have to have a tuition relationship with some university or college. But these are free resources from the Small Business Administration. A mentor from SCORE is an excellent choice for especially a new founder. And as was mentioned, and as Doug will talk about as we wrap up after the panel, the Encore Network Entrepreneurship Affinity Group is working to assemble resources and become a hub for the types of resources that are available for free online to founders. And we hope that will be one of the many services that you will find is valuable. I'll just end this part of the program before we open it up to our guest speakers as I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out if you want to know more about what I'm doing. And my newsletter is every other week on LinkedIn and covers some of the topics and some of the data in combination with interviews with founders. So thank you. And Janine, you're on mute if you're saying something.
I was thanking you very eloquently. Thank you so much. And I think you successfully in this intro both dispelled some of the myths about entrepreneurship, that it is strictly the purview of someone very young. You've demonstrated the strengths that we bring at this Encore stage of life to entrepreneurship. And I think you've already got people inspired before they even hear from our amazing panel. Before we go to the panel, and I will basically announce the panelists, Kelly will spotlight, we'll start asking questions. Then there will be opportunities for you, the audience, to do some Q&A. Before we do that, I just want to recognize my good friend and colleague, Anna Brambilla from the Entrepreneur Source, who is actually sponsoring this program today. So Anna, thank you very much. So glad you were able to join us. So let's go ahead. One of the things we wanted to do in this panel segment is show that entrepreneurship at this life stage doesn't just look one way, right? We have a range of things we can do. We can be, so for example, like myself, who went from starting and managing a company with employees and, having clients all over, to saying, at this life stage, I want to start a social enterprise. I want to end ageism. And now, literally this month, I'm starting yet another venture, which I thought was, good to do as I turned 71 today. So I think we, there is any age, any time is the right time to bring our connections and experience. So what we have for you today in the panel is a range of people who are doing this solo, someone who's operating a franchise, someone who has started a social enterprise, and someone who's running kind of a larger company, maybe what we think of more often. So what I'm going to do in turn is I'm going to ask each person a series of questions, and we'll keep repeating that. Everybody will give their final word of advice, and then we will go ahead and turn it over to you, the audience. So if you have questions along the way, feel free to put them in the chat, or you can save them for the Q&A. So I'm going to start by asking each panelist to do, if you will, their own introduction of themselves in 1 minute or less, and to do it this way by briefly telling us your name, your company, and what it does. And I'm going to go ahead and start with you, Davis Smith, because you're just sitting in the right place in my Zoom square. Davis, go ahead.
Thanks, Janine. Davis Smith. I'm in Bend, Oregon. My company is the Grounds Guys of Bend, Oregon, and it is a lawn care and landscaping company franchise.
Terrific. Thanks so much. Danielle, how about you?
Hi, Janine. Hi, everybody. So I'm Danielle Drury-Duplin, founder and president of Free Wind Productions. I'm a coach for public speakers to help leaders inform, inspire, and influence their audiences and move ideas to action. I'm also an executive producer of global innovation programs focused on aging and longevity. So I'm helping AARP to build an ecosystem of entrepreneurs and enterprises to help the world's populations live longer and age better.
Fantastic. Thank you, Danielle. My girl, Paula Getz from New
Hello.
Mexico. How are you?
Good. Happy
Who are
birthday,
you and why are
Janine.
you here?
Yes. And happy birthday, Janine. And good morning and afternoon, everybody. My name's Paula Getz, and I am based in Albuquerque, New Mexico. After a long 40-year career in high tech, I started, and we'll get into it, I'm sure, a company, a social nonprofit called New Mexico New, and that stands for New Elder World. And we wanted to reach out and proactively engage 50 plus in New Mexico for learning events to go through midlife transition and set up a job board for part-time jobs and curate that and be able to be the place where we do social connections for us. So keep us engaged, keep us healthy, keep us learning and sharing our gifts and experience into the community to make it better.
Paula, terrific. Thank you. Barbara Brooks, unmute yourself and tell us. We are so glad you're here, Barbara.
Me too.
You are your name, your company, and what it does. 1 minute or less.
You got it. Yes. Hi, everyone. All 90 of you. I'm Barbara Brooks. I'm here in Denver. I'm 57. I love to say my age. And happy birthday to you, Janine. And I'm with the company Second Act Women. The company was created in 2018 when I was 51 and couldn't find a job. So I decided to pull an old idea off the shelf and create a company that would help to elevate other women like me at the time and my former business partner, Guadalupe Hurt, who is here, elevate other women. We do that through conferences, events, community, and curated content of over, and we have a community of over 21,000 all told.
Yep. Barbara, thanks so much. And last but not least, Brian Eagle, welcome. Tell us who you are and why you're here.
Well, I'm Brian Eagle. I'm CEO of Glanrus. And what we do at Glanrus is we take agricultural waste products and through a patented process, turn them into something known as biocarbon, which gets utilized as a replacement for cement. It goes into asphalt. It uses a soil amendment. This is part of the circular economy in that we're taking waste products and turning them into carbon sequestering and actually carbon removal products that are going to help to address climate change, but without any green premium associated with the product. So again, it's a large potential opportunity. I'm based in Memphis, Tennessee. But we're largely now focused on getting our expansion facilities up and going in California.
Brian, thanks so much. And my next question, so I'm going to ask the question so all the panelists can prepare for it. But Brian, know that you had me at climate change and circular economy, which to me ties in very well with what Mary was talking about kind of starting something at this stage of life with purpose. So I'm going to be asking you to answer the question first. Our next question is this: what motivated you to start your company at this life stage? And how does your current entrepreneurial venture draw upon those strengths and experience that Mary talked about? Or does it represent pursuing a totally new passion? So Brian, let's go ahead and start with you.
Yeah.
Sorry, you didn't know I was going to do that.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Look, I'm always happy to talk about Glanrus. I mean, very excited to be doing this because we really are changing the world. And we believe that this production, people call it biochar, we call it biocarbon, but the production of biochar is the lowest cost, fastest path to scale of any technology we have out there to sequester carbon and to address climate change. So very powerful tool. This is not something I knew anything about until 2018. My background is all in the telecom world, in wireless, both terrestrial and satellite-based data communications systems. So the green economy was not something I knew anything about. But after having sold a business, I really wanted to do something that had meaningful impact. I don't know. Every time I start a company, I go, this is the last company I'm going to start. But I keep doing it. But I was thinking, hey, as sort of a final act or next to final act, I'd really like to do something that had real impact. And did a lot of research around technologies and techniques and what you could get involved with. And there are really two things that really interested me. This was one of them. And the reason why is if you look across the river in Arkansas, there are, which is where 55% of the rice in the United States is grown. They generate over 2 million tons of rice hulls every year, which they either burn or let rot, which seems to be a huge waste, and 10 times that number in rice straw. So the real question is, what can we do with all this agricultural waste that we generate, and how can we turn it into useful products? That was really what began this search for technologies to address that. Right. And that was really the motivation behind it. Since then we've learned an awful lot. And as Mary referenced, if experience is what we call our mistakes, I'm a very experienced entrepreneur. That has helped me a lot here to avoid some of the traps in all of this. But ultimately we're plowing new ground, pardon the pun a bit, because climate change and particularly climate technologies or climate tech is kind of a new industry, and there's a lot of there's a lot of debate over what's going to work best in all of this. So we're still sort of fighting the public relations battle around how do we deal with addressing this problem, and in some cases still trying to educate people on why there is a problem. So it's a mission, much more so than I think for me, much more so than just a profession. This is really something that I was very passionate about.
Yeah. Brian, that is such a compelling story. And I love how you said that our experience is useful because it's come from making so many mistakes. I actually use that line a lot in my workshops. So, so of course I loved it. Paula, you too did this sort of change. You were in the tech world.
Yes.
Yeah, tell us about the shift you made and how it related to your purpose and what motivated you to start doing this? Because you could have just like cruised on and said, I'm going to hang out in beautiful Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Yes. Yes. Well, I think it started out personal. I mean, I had been a global job for almost 2 decades in 2 big tech companies, loved it, loved my career. And as I started to see my off-ramp, I thought, I know a lot of people globally, but I don't know that many people locally. And how am I going to do this midlife transition? And why does everybody have to do it themselves and figure this out? And that was what really drove me. Is personally, I wanted an organization like New Mexico New to exist. Like, how can we create one place for everyone 50 plus who's looking for their next endeavor to go? And you don't worry about doing it yourself. Just come to one place and there'll be things you can sign up for learning. If you want a part-time job, guarantee you'll come in and there'll be employers that know you're an older adult, 50 plus, coming in with lots of experience, you won't have to compete with everybody in the job market. It's going to be curated for you. And then ways to socially connect and not have to go searching for it yourself. And my business experience immediately told me, and I really didn't want to create a nonprofit myself. And going into nonprofit world, wow, did I have a bunch to learn. And now I'm glad I learned it. Now I know two different worlds and starting a business, because I'd always worked in big corporations. I'd never owned any small business. So now I have utmost respect for people doing startups because it's a lot of work. And wow, have I met passionate business owners. And so that's why I started it. And I mean, my business experience from being a vice president in these tech said, I got to put together the business case. And in New Mexico, we're going to, be one of the oldest states in 2030. So it's an economic imperative that we get 50 plus to stay engaged, to keep working, to keep sharing experience. And then I realized all the health benefits. So it started out personal. I watched my mom do it and admired it. I looked at friends and family not do it so well. And I knew I was not going to do it well if I tried to do it by myself. So everyone told me, this is a great idea, Paula, you got to start it. And I kept saying, no, don't you want to start it? And then they kept throwing it back at me. And so I did it. So
Paula, I love that so much. And so far, we've got a theme emerging here from both you and Brian. Let's dive into something we haven't done before, which I find fascinating and often a characteristic of Encore entrepreneurship. Davis, you and I had the opportunity to chat a little bit last month. You also made a segue. Tell us about that and what motivated you to start, and how does what you're doing now build on your strengths and experience?
Well, I would say it was a major segue. I spent 30 years in the over 30 years in the hospitality industry. Ended up as a VP of operations, overseeing Marriott's and Hilton's and other brands. My dream job that I thought at the age of 20 was doing this. And after spending 5-6 days a week on the road, being available 24/7 because hotels never sleep. Then over COVID, I mean, things changed drastically, and it was a grind. It wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for my family. And I just started thinking, God, what am I going to do? I can't keep going at this pace. At the age of 55, I got to look at something different, and started looking at other opportunities. And I think ageism played a part. I was getting passed up by people that were a lot younger, and I had a lot of experience. I'd opened like 10 hotels over my career, building teams and brands and marketing and everything. And I was like, what am I going to do with this? And I'm like, my motivation was like, I got to work for myself. I got to figure out something, whether I build a business or how am I going to do this? Oddly enough, franchise was not on my list, and I got a call from Anna Bramida, who's on this call, Entrepreneur Source, and I blew her off. I was like, no, I don't want to have anything to do with it. And she's like, okay. So she contacted me again and said, hey, this is, you've got no obligation. I just want to chat with you and kind of get to know you and see if there's some good opportunities for you, because I know what you're up against. Said, fine. We ended up having some conversations, and she got to know me through interviews and personality tests. And she brought me these opportunities that she had done all the research for, and they were available here in my hometown of Bend, Oregon. And we went through this whole process, and that, I guess the motivation was like, gosh, this is a possibility. It's not as hard as I thought it was. There's this huge support group behind the franchise group, Neighborly, that I'm with. And I looked at all the skills that I'd gained over 35 years in the hospitality industry, and every single one of them applied to entrepreneurship and starting your own business. So the ability for coaching and counseling, these things that I've done through all the years, sales and marketing, all applied to opening your own business, opening hotels. And it was kind of a natural fit, and it's been, unbelievable since.
Terrific. So okay, our thread continues. You don't have to, if you're starting something Encore Entrepreneur in the space of Encore Entrepreneurship, it doesn't have to be what you did before or in that same field, that same industry. With that, Barbara Brooks, my friend, I'm going to turn to you. You've already talked a little bit about what motivated you to start, like trying to look for a job and ageism kicking in. But I want to know specifically from you, how does Second Act Women really draw on your strengths or experience? And I will say this, having met someone yesterday who said, "Oh, you know Barbara Brooks, she throws great parties." And I know you do these events. So tell me, Barbara, how Second Act Women built on that. Evidently, you have a reputation for throwing great parties. Sorry.
I love that.
That was not in the
I love a
question
good
I
party.
sent you ahead of time. Yeah.
I love bringing people together, which is where Second Act Women comes in. So interesting enough, what you just said about Davis, my career was in shopping center marketing and business development and sponsorship sales and all of that. And then I also dipped into broadcast sales as well in radio and TV for NBC affiliate here in iHeart. So my background had nothing to do with bringing together women of a certain age to commiserate over this thing called ageism. I didn't think ageism even, it wasn't even a part of my dialect back then. And even when I started the company, Second Act Women, at the time, I didn't think, and I didn't realize it was ageism, which is why I, was sending hundreds of resumes and not getting, interviews or getting ghosted or what have you. So when I did create Second Act Women, my marketing, my PR, my bringing people together and community relations all sort of did bundle together to create something magnificent. But I didn't have, that was my wheelhouse. But I didn't have some of the other things. So I didn't have operations. I didn't have accounting. I didn't have some of these other skill sets that as a solopreneur at the time, and then Lupe came on board, but we're both marketing and PR. Those are the things that I didn't have. But what I love about having created this company is, and going to what you said, is just the collaborations, the bank of contacts, the things that as a woman of a certain age has been able to create and see other companies, other women's companies start from the very beginning, much like probably some of you are doing, but also collaborate with other women within this group and allies, because, it's not just about women over 40, 50, 60 plus, but we do have a large amount of companies that also are supporting our mission and our movement to eradicate ageism and all of that. And so yeah, when it comes to Second Act Women, it didn't start as something that I had come from, but it sort of now 6 years in, it's my mission. And my vision is to not see ageism affect or reverse ageism, because we've all also probably experienced that too.
Okay. So Barbara, I'm going to applaud that. Okay. We do want to end ageism. Danielle, so I'm curious, are you going to kind of reverse the tide here, or is your current venture different than where you came from? Tell us your transition and what your motivation was for starting.
Well, it's a little both and. So indeed, I also had a 30-year career in IT and am now out as an entrepreneur. And I would say that innovation really has been my through line since day one. As a young software engineer in financial services, I applied technology to solve business problems. Then later as an IT executive and intrapreneur, used technology to launch new lines of businesses, which really got me like hooked on the whole entrepreneurship journey. And then later, as an executive producer for the Fidelity Center for Applied Technology, I produced hundreds of events on innovation, including an award-winning TV series that I hosted. So I really got into the whole storytelling aspect as a means to inspire other people to be excited about emerging tech and looking over the horizon to solve big world scale problems. So like all of that kind of accumulated when I hit my crossover date. I'd been at the company longer than I hadn't been at the company. So it was over half my life. And I was like, it's time. I love the work. I love the people, I love the community, I love the growth. But it was time to branch out and do something on my own. And so when I sat back and thought, I'm like, am I going to be an IT executive, but as an independent? Like, no, that would seem too hard. So I was like, but what is the one thing that was endlessly fascinating, fulfilling, gratifying for me over and over and over again? And that was coaching the speakers to get up on stage and rock the room and change the world with their words. And so I was an engineer turned public speaking coach. And over time, I've developed curriculum that I work with university. I teach at universities, I teach at corporates, I do workshops, I help individuals prepare for high stakes talks like TED Talks and so forth. And I just love it, love learning from these folks that I work with. And it's more than just public speaking coaching like ums and ahs. It's because of my business background and my 30 years of business and tech acumen. I actually help on content and strategy as part of the ideas that they're trying to convey. So all that was well and good, and that's my coaching practice, but I was still itching. I had sort of succeeded at the company scale. I wanted to succeed at the community scale. And so I do a lot of board work with the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, helping innovators in low-income cities to improve the work that they're doing for residents through innovation. I'm on the board of Leading Cities. We do that globally. And I was like, what is the problem at the world scale that I can sink my teeth into now that I'm 60? And it's aging and longevity and ageism indeed. So now I'm partnering with AARP, and we are knocking it out with the Age Tech Collaborative, bringing startups and enterprises and entrepreneurs and actually stakeholders in every sector to say how is internal ageism playing in your part of in your perch? How can you use your perch to change that narrative? And how can we get more innovative products and services into the hands of older adults who are living alone, aging in community, their caregivers, their families, the health systems, and aging services that support the whole aging network? So it's kind of come full circle in that I'm taking everything that I learned in the financial services context, but applying it to the world context through the financial lens, but also health and social connections. So I feel like I'm just getting started all over again, but with this full, set of experiences I can remix in new contexts. And I would say that's the message for anybody on this call who's still kind of 1 foot in corporate and 1 foot out. Like, try to find the thing that you're superpower in and see if you can create a consultancy or something that somebody would pay you for on the outside to do, and then start using that to make the difference in the world that you want to manifest at this time of your life.
Danielle, I love that. And I think you've given so much inspiration, your enthusiasm, certainly for what you're doing and for reinvention comes through really clearly. Mary, can I ask you in 2 minutes to wrap up what you've just heard and how because you're an expert in this, you're talking to entrepreneurs all the time, how what you've heard aligns with the entrepreneurs, the Encore entrepreneurs specifically that you talk with every day. What's the through line here that other people can take away?
Well, at this stage of our lives, we all have experience to draw on. And so build on that experience. That's a common thread, as well as don't be afraid to jump off that foundation and do something completely different. It's yes and here. And that really has come through in all of our speakers today. You know something deeply, you've had terrific experience, but it's maybe not what you want to do next. So let yourself think more broadly about that, what's next, and be willing to learn. And that purpose that I mentioned has been shining through here for every single person who has spoken. And I'm so I'm delighted to know the people on this screen, and this is what keeps me going.
Yeah.
And it keeps us all going is we share this energy as well as this mission to, yes, end ageism, but be an inclusive, collaborative, and innovative part of changing the world for the better with people of all ages. So that's my summary.
Yay, Mary, terrific. Thank you. So to everybody who's in on this session, the intent of this session is really to kind of start talking about Encore entrepreneurship, to have you be inspired by the possibilities, by the data that Mary shared, by the stories that you're hearing. But one of my longtime sayings from when I was on the board of the Social Enterprise Alliance was, don't just talk about it, be about it, right? So we're going to go into our how do you be about it. The Encore network will be doing future programs where we'll drill into more details. But one of the things I want to ask each of the speakers right now is, what was helpful for you in planning and sharing? Like at some point you decided, I'm going to do it. And yes, you had backgrounds that brought you certain skills, but were there specific kind of resources or people that you turned to that were really helpful in planning or starting this venture? And everyone on the call, if you additionally have some resources you know about, go ahead and put them in the chat. We're going to be putting all of these into a resource handout that will be available through the Encore network. And Danielle, I'm going to start with you. When you were planning this, and if we can kind of try, I know we have a lot of things today, if we can take about maybe 2 minutes each for this, resources that you found really helpful when you were planning and starting. Danielle.
Yeah, for sure. So I leaned in on coaching and different types of coaches for different like stages of this evolution or transition. Certainly leaving corporate, it's a little bit of an identity crisis, and you're kind of like, how do you exist out there in the world without all of the resources that you're used to having? And so having an executive coach, life coach, was super helpful. And then also other types of very specific coaches for business building. So through the SCORE network, through a lot of colleagues. I would say, secondly, for me, since I'm a connector kind of person, instead of sitting, I spent a couple of months just taking my laptop, to the park, to the public library, just kind of being free of corporate constraints. And then that got a little old. So like parking in a co-working space that was very vibrant with other entrepreneurs and lots of programming and events. So it's a very vibrant environment. So I think put yourself in a good context that is nourishing for you and that you can expand in interesting ways with relationships. I also am a kind of a conference junkie. So going out to conferences and following who's talking about what and reaching out to them on LinkedIn, even cold calling, saying, hey, I saw your talk. It was really inspiring. I read your paper. I have some ideas. I'd love to noodle with you. So being very like active on LinkedIn and with the community. And then I would say too, is taking a good hard look at your own strengths through either formal assessments or what your flow states are, and then finding other people that complement that. And so when I started agency, I did it with a partner, and our skills are very complementary, and we can lean on each other. So even though we're doing an entrepreneurship, it didn't have to be completely alone. So I would say just keep nourishing yourself, being honest about what you need, and go find that resource to help you with your next milestone or to help you in an environment that really uplifts you.
Yeah.
And there's books like this that are amazing. It's never too late to begin again.
Okay. And we will have, so if anyone has written books on this topic, go ahead and put those in the chat as well, because we want to really have everyone leave with, not leave today, but we will have a comprehensive resource list. Barbara, what did you do? You're going from marketing shopping malls to creating a community of second act women. What resources did you find helpful in starting?
So some of mine are tactical and others are not. So what I started out with is my connection, my group of women that I already knew. So I actually got a lot of women to volunteer to help me launch the company. So sitting in a room and literally doing a little bit of marketing research and finding out what women wanted from a company like this. So really doing research and understanding obviously who you're looking to help. And also for me, figuring out the problem that I was looking to solve. Because remember, at the time, I didn't know it was ageism until I started listening to my women. So it's doing that. It's also, for me, resources. I'm a planner. I put in writing, at least on one page, or what I wanted this company to be after I did the market research within my group of women. The other thing is I leaned on my media contacts. So once we had Biz LifeCon, which was the first event to launch Second Act Women, once we had that ready to go, I leaned in on getting media, getting on TV, and really promoting the heck out of what this thing was. The other one was Canva. Don't try to create your own logo, y'all. Don't do it. You need to, if you're coming straight out of the chute, you've got one chance to show that you mean business, and that you've got to lean on things like that. You've got to use Canva, and also probably invest in a graphic designer. Even if it's on Fiverr, just go on Fiverr and pay a little bit of money, and at least have your brand intact, so that when you launch, which is the next thing, when I launched, mine happened to be at Biz LifeCon in front of 139 women. So I say also launch, whether it's a soft launch online and say that you're going to be doing this, or do a small little party. Janine mentioned I love a good party. So do a gathering at your home, or at a co-working space, those kinds of things. I think the other thing is understand your value. So it was very hard. Again, my things are some are tactical, not understanding your value and realizing how much you're going to charge and owning that. Because even though I was really great at selling sponsorships, and I'm talking, hundreds of thousands up to millions of dollars in sponsorships for my properties, I wasn't comfortable selling Barbara Brooks, and undervalued and undercut my value until I started recognizing it. So there's that. And networking. Gosh, the one that we have, and I said this earlier, is the bank of connections, and the idea and the fact that women and men and it's not crabs in a barrel. We really do want to help one another. We really do. So there's that. I went on LinkedIn and sending messages, and yes.
All
So
the
there you
things.
go.
All the things. All right, Barbara, thank you. Brian, how about you? What resources? You have this incredible business background. You sold a successful company. What resources did you draw on to go, to start this new thing and address climate change of all things? And if I can ask you to unmute yourself.
Yeah, so I want to pick up on one point that Barbara said. There's this old expression, in the 90s that I think maybe even Apple coined it, was that you design the t-shirt first and the product second, right? Logo and branding is so critical when you're trying to present your image, that I agree. Don't ever design your own logo. And there are many resources out there. Obviously, great design firms out there that will, can do it for lots of money. Also, there are lots of tools like 99 Designs and others out there that you can get very inexpensive, and I think in a lot of cases, well-designed logos. So branding is important. People take that very seriously. So, when kind of obvious, but when you don't know something, the best thing you can do is hit the Google machine and just start searching, and read everything. I mean, that's really kind of the key here. Is if you want to be an expert in your field, you got to read what's out there. So I spent a lot of time with that. Spent a lot of time with a local university here, where there was a professor interested in this. That also opened up the door to some of these, the ability to get some of these scientific papers, which were important to read and to understand, because a lot of times you don't have access to that without subscriptions or spending a lot of money to get at these things. And I think, since this was new to me, a new industry, a new group of people, I didn't have a deep bench that I could go to. If this had been in the telecom industry, I probably had the cell phone number for 40 people that I could reach out to talk about this. But, this was something new. So well, I spent a lot of time on LinkedIn, and just hitting it. I mean, and not everybody, responds quickly on LinkedIn, but LinkedIn is a great networking tool. There's a lot of fluff out there, and I think in the last couple of years, there's been a lot more sort of selling that's gone on as opposed to networking, and those are different things. And that's created a lot more noise on LinkedIn. But for me, it was very helpful in making connections with people in this new industry that I knew nothing about. And I found, if you go to people and ask them, their opinion, most people are pretty willing to share it and offer you help that way. So, those were great resources for me in the early days.
Brian, I love that. And I love reinforcing again, networking, that even if we are going into an adjacent field, and I know that happened to me before I started changing the narrative, what had I done about ageism? Absolutely nothing. I was like, is it really a thing? But because of the consulting company that I had run, I had so many contacts kind of in adjacent fields that I could say, okay, help me navigate through this when we were starting. So thank you for bringing that up. Davis, how about you? You've already mentioned the fabulous Anna helped you out. What other resources did you use as you were starting this up?
Well, yeah, I took a little different route with the franchising. So, Anna was the one that actually set that in motion and kind of gave me the options to look at. You know, she was the biggest resource without a doubt. And franchising is a little different because your speed to market is so much quicker, especially with my group, Neighborly. All the support is there. More support than you could actually that you need on a daily basis, whether it's the marketing, the plans, coaching for, I went from hospitality to landscaping. Was I a landscaper? No. Was this even on my radar? It wasn't even on my radar when she brought it up. But the more research I did locally in my market for the need, I was like, wow, this is something that really people need here in Oregon. And then using the resources from the franchise group, just the speed to market was incredible. In a year, I've surpassed guys that have been in the business for 7 years in the same area just from those resources. So again, it's a little different than, going out on your own and using all this stuff. This group may really kind of gives you everything you need to get there, in a very logical order.
Okay. All right, Davis, thank you. So for some of those who don't want to plow through Dr. Google and ChatGPT and all of that, franchising and I'm a total ChatGPT person, looking at franchising may be a good option. Paula, how about you? Because talk about, going from VPRE, big tech company, to I'm going to start a program for people age 50 and over in Albuquerque, New Mexico. How do you do that? What resources did you draw on?
Yeah, the first thing was I wasn't sure my idea. I mean, I knew it meant a bunch to me, but was it really going to fly? And so I started and live by a motto that give first before you want to get something back. So I started getting on boards. So I got on a board for a children's advocacy center. I got on the board for the Alumni Association for the business school at UNM, University of New Mexico. And I started to meet people. And and then I'm an extrovert, and I had a lot of experience advocating for ideas and running a risk management organization at Oracle and at Sun Microsystems. So I knew how to go advocate and network an idea. So I just started buying a lot of coffee, going to lunch with a lot of people, talking about, do you think this is valuable? And I got pretty much resounding feedback of, yes, this is valuable. And then I started going to startup organizations, just their socials. Like there's a place called New Mexico Angels. I think every community has one that, and it's all angel investors investing in startups. And I just went and listened. And what I heard was they were missing a lot of mentoring, a lot of ability to go get a retired CFO to help them set up their business books, an HR person to come in and help them get start up their manuals and help them not get sued, and lots of stuff like that. And I thought, yes, this is exactly what I'm trying to set up. So I knew it was valuable. Then I got business people together, key ones that I had met, and really looked at them in the face and said, you tell me, should we start this? And then I was lucky. I had a friend that was really good in marketing and in graphic arts and the like that said, I'll help you get this started, Paula. And so it was fabulous to have that kind of support. And I leaned on family and friends and said, anybody interested in helping? And financially too. And we actually got it started. So that's what we really leaned on. And business planning absolutely did that. But really leaning on the business community to say, are you going to formally support this if we start this? So,
Paula, and I love that you cited one of my favorite strategies, taking people to lunch and finding out what ideas they have and how they react to your ideas. Mary, we're going to go ahead and we're going to give our very short final piece of wisdom. If there was one piece of wisdom that you could leave people with, and I want to start with you because you've already shared a bunch of resources in your amazing slides. What's the one piece of advice that you would give everybody on this call who's thinking about Encore entrepreneurship? And I'm going to ask each of you this, but I'm going to start with Mary.
Okay, so I am going to take a shortcut here shamelessly and just say everything that everyone on this panel has said is terrific advice. So honestly, there is no silver bullet, and that is how I teach entrepreneurship. What do you want to accomplish? If you want to start a Glamorous, you're going to need to do different kinds of things than if you want to be a rock star on the stage with Danielle, or go through a franchise with Davis, or become the community to go to for second act women with Barbara, or the resource in a local community with Paula. So we all have our mission, our purpose, and there is no one straight path, but everything that has been said here works. Okay. And we know it because we done it. So that is,
I guess
my
everyone is
advice
just going to have to make sure they download the recording when it's sent out and listen to all of it again, because I agree, we've gotten great advice. Danielle,
continue to learn from everybody else.
Yeah.
Your one piece of advice.
Yeah, I would say manifest and say yes. So manifest what your desired feeling is, your the impact that you want to make in the world, and then say yes to the opportunities that come along that challenge you and help you grow towards that goal. It may not come in the packaging that you might have expected. It may feel a little risky at first, but I would say, like with my coaching practice, I just said yes to all the clients that asked me to help them, and with each gig, I learned from them. And each gig, actually, I expanded my curriculum because of the kinds of nuances that they were asking me to do. So I, over time, developed this very robust, now like I could do a 12-week class at university on public speaking. So but it didn't start that way. It started because I started with a nugget and then just kept building, and then continue to manifest and say, well, how do I want to, make a difference in the world, a lasting impact in the world on aging and longevity? Say yes to this consulting opportunity that showed up, even though it wasn't my initial, I went out trying to build it myself, which proved to be just bigger than me during a pandemic. So partnering with a very large respected company was just kind of the avenue that I'm taking now, but it was manifest and just say yes.
I love that. And it rhymes. Manifest, say yes, let's go.
Yes.
Davis, one piece of advice.
Don't wait. Don't wait.
Don't wait.
Don't wait. You've all your life and career experiences up to this point has led you to this. You're prepared to make that next step, do the research, start now, get it going, be on your own boss. You'll never look back. Never.
Yeah.
Can I say how much I love that? Paula, go. One piece of
don't-
advice.
Yeah, so one is make sure you have your support. I call it my support posse around me, right?
Yeah.
Because definitely there's going to be those dark days that you go, what am I doing this for? And you call people in your posse for those days. And then second, don't fear the pivot. I mean, I didn't mention yet, but we were really struggling as a nonprofit to get the bigger money to build that job board. And so the board said, Paula, we got to go find somebody to acquire us. And it was the best thing. And now CNM, the largest educational institution in New Mexico, acquired us. And now we're one of their programs in the nonprofit side. And it's incredible what a difference it's made. So.
And it was fabulous. I so enjoyed being out there and being able to chat with everybody there.
Yes,
Barbara, and we'll finish with Brian. Barbara. So Brian's got to be good because you're getting the last word. I'm giving you a heads up. No pressure. Barbara.
Davis and Danielle stole mine. I do say just do it, but I will go, I will say, you have to get the education. So, sign up for SBA, sign up for local classes at your community college or your local universities. I found out that Denver University, and this is probably true of other universities, actually offer one course. You could take a course for, like $150 or what have you. You don't have to sign up for an entire, like when we were all in college, you don't have to sign up for the entire semester, but get the education. Get the education, especially if you're doing something that it isn't particularly in your wheelhouse, or perhaps it's in your wheelhouse, but there's other things that you need to learn. I say do that, but also a part of that learning is learning that you can't do it all. And so outsource when you can. A virtual assistant is the best thing you can invest in, I'm telling you, or just someone else that can help you get that thing done.
Yes to outsourcing and yes to virtual assistants. Brian, you get the last word. I know it's going to be good.
Well, thank you. I think, for me, the advice that I tell people all the time is you got to believe in yourself, right? Because if you don't believe in yourself and your ability to pull this off, nobody else will. Okay. So, but having said that, don't do it alone. I think it is always good to start with a co-founder. There are many venture firms out there that, in fact, won't invest in you unless there are at least two people in the entity that are really co-founders, and don't make that person a clone of you. I think it's important to have diversity of opinions and ideas, and to have somebody who pushes you and you push them and challenge you on issues. That I think always makes for a better deal. Paula brought up the point about pivot. Every single deal I've been successful in looked nothing like the original business plan. Nothing. And I can tell you stories about it because it's really interesting, I think, about how that happens. But really, it's very simple. It's about listening to the voice of the customer. Because if you're banging your head against the wall to go down this path, and everybody's saying, well, that's interesting, but I'd really like something over here, and you kind of go, no, I'm over here, you're missing the market. And a lot of times you start off heading here and you go here, and then you end up over here. And then, so the path between A and B is never a straight line. And a lot of times that pivot is what makes the difference. So don't be afraid to pivot. Don't pivot every week, but, make sure that you listen to the voice of the market.
Brian, I so appreciate ending with that. I think about the growth of changing the narrative from when I started in 2018 to basically a Colorado-based initiative that was going to do work on reframing aging. And then, within last year, there were people from all 50 states in the US and 49 countries outside who participated in one or more of our workshops or programs. And that happened because people basically said, would you do this? And so Danielle, taking your advice, we said, sure, that sounds like it might help end ageism. Let's do it. So everybody, can you join me in a round of virtual applause for our amazing panel? But now we want to make sure we have an opportunity for you to ask questions. I know some of you, we're going to have about 10 minutes for that. Mary and Doug, I believe, are going to be queuing up the questions. Is that right? So monitoring the chat. And Doug, I know you've been monitoring throughout. So if you have seen questions that you want to start asking any of our panelists, and if others have questions, if you want to go ahead and put them in the chat, that would be lovely. Thank you so much.
Well, yes, there's been a lot of conversation in the chat, a lot of it agreeing with and being inspired by all the things that the panel has said today. There have been a couple of questions, one of which I want to highlight, related to a view that all of the panelists have had remarkable experience. That's the perception, right? And someone has said, what about someone like me who hasn't had that kind of expansive experience? How do I think about my next step? And in her case, she has been a volunteer engagement coordinator. And wants to think about how she can turn that experience into being a consultant, perhaps in that field. Any advice for her?
Hey, Doug, this is Paula. One thing I would say is, one, look to your community college and a lot of the resources we talked about of really getting training to start your own business. Our community college, and I know AARP funds a lot of this type of stuff across the US, is a place called Silver Entrepreneurship. And it is, I mean, a workshop that gives you tremendous resources to start your own business. And then get a board, no matter what kind of organization you are, get a board with diverse experience and people from the places and ways you want to go to make sure they can steer you. So.
And I'll also just give a shortcut. And the shortcut is this: if you've got this strong background in nonprofits, I ran a social sector consulting firm that had clients from around the world for 35 years. And there are so many needs that nonprofits have that they can't fully staff. If you've got that expertise, you could literally go out and start consulting with someone tomorrow. You can develop their volunteer program. You can do volunteer training, all the things that you've built up in that experience. Nonprofits now desperately need, because there actually has been a decline in volunteerism for nonprofits. So just take the advice of our panelists, start it. And yeah, take a course in the basics of a business, but you can do this. Danielle, you wanted to weigh in on that as well?
Yeah, I wanted, and this is true for every entrepreneur, no matter what your product or service is, you've got to do that product market fit, market analysis. So go out and find out where are the pain points that match your superpower, and are people willing to pay for that? And I think, Janine, you just put it together beautifully. Like, do what you do, but do it in different contexts for people who actually have that gap, and you're filling that gap.
Yeah. Mary.
Let me just add, reality note, do write down a business plan. Do the market research.
Yeah.
Do make your list of who you know now. Even if you feel that you don't have this fabulous background, you know people, and you know people who are doing or hiring the kind of work that you would like to enter. So those are your resources. But organize yourself, whether it's a course or SCORE or the Small Business Administration. I want to give a plug for it. It's free, it's online, in addition to having in-person local or offices. They have a step-by-step business plan with video and practice templates for every single step for all kinds of small businesses, and use it. It's free, and it will just make an enormous difference in your launch, in your acceleration and ability to win customers.
Yeah.
Can I add, Aaron here, my buddy here from Colorado, just put something up about public library, and it's absolutely true. A lot of us don't recognize or realize that public libraries, not only do they have free spaces that you could go and meet with your crew or your group if once you grow your team, but also they can do the market research for you. There are librarians that are on staff who will, for free, do help you with your business plan, help you with your strategy, help you with all these different things. And it's free. And we just don't think to use those types of resources. So remember that. The old school public library, and I don't think they have microfiche anymore, but there you go. They do.
I'd like to just add one. Oh, sorry. I just want to add one more because I
just
think
want to make sure that anybody who
sorry,
has
then move on.
I think we're going to have an opportunity for maybe one more question. So if you have a burning question, please put it in the chat and Doug will queue it up. Danielle, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to, so the person who said, well, I don't have that kind of experience, but you have life experience and you have people that you've worked with throughout your very long decades of doing volunteer work. Find those people on LinkedIn that you had a great relationship with, you did some great work for, they had an impact, you built some trust between the two of you, enjoyed working together. Find out the context of there and now. That's what surprised me so much, is like decades of working with a zillion people, everybody's moved on as well. And they're in a different role. Maybe they're in an executive leadership role, or they're in a hiring position, or they're in a company that you feel like you want to get involved in. So like use that as stepping stones to kind of like get you into these other contexts, is all the people that you've worked with, even if you feel like don't shortchange your experience. I'm sure it's amazing.
Great advice. Great advice. Okay, Doug, do you see any additional questions?
There was a question raised earlier about what programs and courses people who are thinking about entrepreneurship might take advantage of. And I think the panel has also already weighed in on that. And there have been wonderful suggestions in the chat. But the question that I take away from that is, what's the right balance between studying up on the one hand and actually doing it and learning from experience on the other? How does that play out in the experience of the panelists?
Yeah, Barbara?
There is something called being a procrastinator. And that's especially big for people like me with ADHD. You will go down the rabbit hole and continue to learn, and you won't do anything. So I say, balance up learning and doing and making those mistakes, just like we did when we were in our younger days. Making those mistakes will actually get you to the place you need to be. So don't be a procrastinator and go down the rabbit hole of just learning. Do a balance of both.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't be afraid. I mean, again, gets back to you got to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
And that, that it's scary, right? I mean, you're stepping off the high dive here. But you just have to do it. And that's how you learn. That's how you gain that experience. That's how you gain that confidence.
Yeah. And I would say carve out something that could be a pilot, right? So yes, do your research, do your business plan, figure it out, and then pilot something and shut up and listen, right? Really listen to your customer who comes and say, is this working? Is this valuable? Will they pay for it? Good one that Danielle keeps saying. So.
Yeah,
Right.
Paula, and I've done that a lot. I would just put workshops up there that I hadn't developed yet. I knew the content, but I wasn't going to develop the whole workshop. I put it up there, put registration, put the amount. If people paid for it, I'm like, I guess we're going to develop that workshop then. So,
Good.
I also say, I think it's important that you follow companies that might be considered competitors. So you see what they're doing. So you see who's following. So you see what is being said in the engagement, in the posts, because that's going to help you build out your programming as well, or whatever it is that you're going to do, because you're going to see through your competitors what people are asking for, and what are they talking about, and what are they doing and wanting.
Yeah, Mary and Danielle, you both wanted to jump in. Let's take a brief comment from each of you. And then Doug, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about, for those of you who want to continue this conversation in one way or another, what can we do about it? So Mary and Danielle, you have the last word.
I would say yes to LinkedIn and yes to reaching out. Brian, bless your heart. Brian didn't know me. He's a very busy founder, CEO. I'm writing a book. I messaged him on LinkedIn and said, I'd like to talk about you in my book. Would you be willing to get on Zoom for a preliminary conversation? And he answered me. And it works. It works to, if you have a reason that you want to reach somebody, put that in your message to them on LinkedIn. And the other obvious thing, but it needs saying, I'll say it, we are your network.
Right.
Encore Network is there for people who come to this meeting and everyone else who is interested in Encore entrepreneurship. So join us as part of that network to help everyone else and to help yourself to succeed.
Danielle. Thank you, Mary. Danielle.
Yeah. And I would say, look for incubators or accelerators in your area or virtual ones that you can join. Because if you would thrive better in a structured way to march through this process, like there's great many accelerators and incubators out there that will help you get, from one stage to the next. And then you graduate from these incubators with a huge network. There's usually pitching involved, so you getting up in front of, public to kind of talk about what you do. So, there are structured ways to go through this journey as well as sort of this point to point that we've been talking about.
Okay, terrific. Okay, we've been talking about the importance of the network and our connections. So, and the Encore Network is all about connections to transform the lives of people age 50 and over. Kelly has just put up a brief poll. If you can go ahead and take a moment. And then Doug Dixon, who co-chairs the Encore Entrepreneurship Affinity Group with Mary Cronin, is going to go ahead and make the pitch. Are you making a pitch, Doug, or what are you doing?
Why not? I'm making several pitches, so hang in there with me. The first thing I want to do is thank the panelists. And I want to thank Janine and Mary for organizing this wonderful program. And we've had amazing comments from people who have been enthusiastic about what they've learned in the last hour and a half. So thank you to all of you. We also want to thank our sponsor for this program, Anna Brambilla and the Entrepreneur's Source. And this is a program that provides personalized coaching for people looking for their next opportunity. And in particular, they help people identify their goals, their needs, their expectations. They provide lots of resources and support. So if you have questions, if you want to go through a process where you examine the range of opportunities that are available, and in particular to consider the possibility of a franchise, the Entrepreneur's Source is a great place to start. And you can see the information, the link there. And by the way, I just want to reinforce the fact that we will be sharing all of this information in a follow-up email that will probably arrive in your email box sometime early next week. We'll include the recording, we'll include the slides, we'll include contact information, we'll include all the resources that have been shared in the chat and by the panelists. So there's a big lump of information coming to you, and it will include information about how to reach Anna Brambilla and the Entrepreneur's Source as well. We've talked about the growing Encore Network. If you have not joined, or if your membership has lapsed, now is the perfect time to join. First of all, it gives you access to the Encore Entrepreneurship Affinity Group, which I'll talk about in a minute. But also, if you join between now and April 15th, we will give you a free membership that you can use to bring in a friend or a colleague or a peer, someone else that can join. And we'll also send you a free copy of Chip Conley's new book, Learning to Love Midlife. And this is courtesy of Karen Brown and iAging. This book is just out, and the next book from our friend Chip Conley. So now is the right time. Build connection, take advantage of programs, resources, all of the affinity groups, not just the Encore Entrepreneurship Affinity Group. but you can only have access to the and now is the time. So the second thing that I want to talk about, maybe it's the third, is one of the benefits of membership, which is to participate in the Encore Entrepreneurship Affinity Group. And Mary talked a little bit about our goal to provide a forum for people who are either working in this field or want to be a part of making entrepreneurship more accessible to people over 50. What's interesting is the numbers that Mary shared show the large interest in entrepreneurship among people over 50. But sadly, the resources to support people's entry into various forms of entrepreneurship over 50 are not as robust as they are for other age groups. And we want to make a change in that. So the next meeting is on April 2nd. It's 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 to 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Sign up now. There's a link there. And at our event page, and sign up and become a part of that group. But we also have a program coming up on April 24th on Purpose. Anna Hall, who is founder and owner of the Purpose Equation, will present a program for employers, coaches, consultants, and others in this field called Unlocking Purpose. And she's developed a whole host of tools and exercises and experiences that help to demystify this process of figuring out what the motivation is, what the purpose is for people over 50 going forward. So don't miss that. There are also programs coming up in May, looking at the expanded range of opportunities for people to work in non-traditional ways. Working is not just tied to a job anymore. And the question we're posing is, can you actually find a job without getting hired? And the answer is yes. Sometimes that's because people like those who served on our panel today want to work on their own. But there are other ways for people to work that don't necessarily involve a W-2 relationship with an employer. So on May 15th, join us for another panel discussion where we'll learn from people who are doing just that. And then in June, we have a program that we're planning called an Affinity Group Summit. It's our first summit. We have a number of affinity groups, and we're going to bring them all together so that people can learn more about affinity groups and help us think about what more we can do. Maybe it's a new affinity group, maybe it's a new idea for one of the existing affinity groups. So as I mentioned, there's a follow-up email coming your way with a whole lot of information. We have these new programs coming up that you can take advantage of. If you're not already a member of the network, please join. Today's the day because you get the additional perk of a side membership and a new book or a copy of Chip's new book. And last but not least, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone for attending and for those who participated in the program. Have a wonderful afternoon.
And happy birthday, Janine.
Going to lunch now.
Thank you for giving up
Happy
your birthday. For this
birthday.
program.
Happy birthday.
Y'all are the only thing standing between me and a lobster roll. I'm headed out. Bye.
Have a
Enjoy.
great day, Janine.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.